Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Metzler, one of the programmers with the Green Film Festival San Francisco. We try to bring some of the more kind of interesting environmental and just like really cool films from around the world here to the Bay Area. You just saw the really terrific documentary, Call Me Mule, and we're lucky enough to have the director here, John McDonald. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
So I imagine that many in the audience are wondering, how in the world did you run across this story and then decide to pick up your camera and film?
I didn't really run across it. It kind of ran across me. There were some mules coming down through my neighborhood, and I tried to stop this guy to talk to him, and he just kept walking. And so I got in my car and drove and kind of like blocked him out and said, "No, no, please." And he said, "Okay, let me go around the corner because my mules are now eating the plants in front of the dentist's office down in my community." So he went around to the parking lot, and then he talked to me a little bit, and I didn't find out much, but he asked me if he was heading towards in the right direction to go to the Arroyo south of the Rose Bowl, because that's where he wanted to camp for that night. So anyway, I was living in South Pasadena. I got a call from a buddy of mine who is a cinematographer, Stuart Asbjornson, and he actually said, "John, you got to run down to the corner right now, and you're going to see the subject of your next documentary."
The consummate filmmaker.
Yeah.
In there's all this discussion, documentary filmmakers, filmmaking communities around like kind of building relationships and things. And so you had this kind of impromptu moment with him. And so how did you kind of like develop that relationship with him and know that there was kind of a film? And were there also boundaries, I guess, in the sense of like, things that he didn't want film, or how did you kind of coordinate? That's a kind of a very mealy mouth answer of like, yeah, so you found the subject, right? And then how did it kind of wish its way into existence?
Well, I went home after meeting him that evening, and it was right before Christmas Day. And I first, of course, ran it by my wife, got to do that. Mm-hmm. And she said, "Don't get any ideas. You're not going to be doing another documentary. It's like, I'm not going to finance you any longer," or something to that effect. Plus, the kids are in town and stuff. And so I said, "Okay, well, I'm just going to take the dog for a walk. I think I'll take her down to the Arroyo." And so I took the dog down there, and I walked around and finally found him near some stables that they have down there, kind of equine friendly area. And I actually took a cup of coffee with me and offered him a cup of coffee, and we started talking. And I said, "I got my camera in the car," because I did grab my camera. "Can I just come out and, as we talk, just film you?" And he goes, "Of course," like everybody would. "No, absolutely not." I go, "But the stuff you're saying is actually really important, and it sounds like the kind of thing you want to communicate to people. I mean, and I'm a documentary filmmaker. This is a chance to get that message out to people," because he really was kind of on a mission. And he said, "Okay." So I got my camera out. I filmed a little bit. He would not look in the camera. He was really camera shy, really just shy, even being close to me. And but did get through that day, and I said, "Now, how am I going to? I'd like to do some more filming with you. How will I find out? How will I find you? Because you're on the move all the time." And he goes, "I do have this phone that I use once a week to call my sister. And I just call her, and it's I don't have to pay much for this, but I've heard about this thing called texting, but I don't know how to do it." And I said, "Oh, okay, we can text each other." So spent a good 1 hour tutorial practicing texting, making sure he got it. He texted me, we figured that out. And then he went off to go camp out and get ready to do his ride at the Rose Parade. He actually said he was going to ride in the Rose Parade. I said, "Oh, really? They're accepting you in the Rose Parade?" He goes, "No, I'm just going to go up and see if I can walk in the Rose Parade." So I actually went up there that day with my camera, waiting to see him in the Rose Parade, because all the kind of crazies walk towards the end of the Rose Parade and come in, and the protest marches and stuff go on, and the Jesus saves people and all that. And I think, oh, that's where he's going to do it. I never saw him. I waited there the whole day. Then the paper the next day said, "Man with mules enters the Rose Parade and walks alongside the Queen's float for 10 minutes before they realize he's not supposed to be in the parade." So it was like, oh God, this guy is, yeah, he has some guts. So then I didn't hear from him. And then it was about January 6th, I got a text from him saying, "If you still want to meet with me, I'm at such and such a location." Gave me some cross streets, and he says, "I'm near the railroad tracks," which he often was near railroad tracks when he would camp. So I did go up, and I started filming him some more. And that is when we started talking about some boundaries. And I told him that I'd eventually need to get a release from him, but he doesn't have to do that right now. And he said, "Well, we'll have to see about that." I also said that I'm going to be showing the good and the bad and the ugly. I'm not going to be just, sugarcoating everything about your life, because I want to just really document you. He said, okay. But then did some filming that day, and I was just getting used to the whole idea of, I hadn't shot anything myself for years. So all that early footage was just, awful. And so I was learning as I was going along. And so none of that early footage even ended up in the film. And then he and then I didn't hear from him again for a while. And then he texted me again, said, "Well, I've now moved down." He's like 30 miles away from where he was before. And every day I thought, okay, this might be the last day I'll be able to film. He could cut me off at any time, and it's his right to do so. So it did end up lasting over a period of 27 months in the end, and 200 days of filming.
Wow.
And then,
obviously there's the kind of a initial curiosity. Like, at what point in time did you find like your voice for the film and what you knew it? Was it in the editorial process, or was there like a moment when you were out filming where you're like, okay, this is what the film is?
I always thought it would be more of a chronological study of just following him day by day. I also felt, as a traditional documentary filmmaker, that I had to get interviews with as many people as possible: bystanders, police, judges, animal control people, equestrian people. You got to have interviews. You got to validate. You have to have people reflect on him. And it wasn't until we got in the editing room and my daughter kind of took over. She goes, "Dad, you have to just tell the story through his voice. You don't need all these other people. Let the audience be those people that are going to be your so-called talking head people. Let them judge him for the way they want to judge him or talk about him." So it wasn't really until post-production. I mean, I have all these great talking head interviews, which I guess if I was going to present a workshop or something, I would go and show those, as a part of the process.
I mean, in some ways, I guess that was kind of like you were doing research at the same time, because I'm sure that informed the way that you crafted the story, and the way, the kind of ways that you kind of talked with him. Was there like a point in time? I mean, like, after you go through this, I mean, like, I think there are many people in the audience who are going to kind of come across, think about this in different ways. But like, what do you think when we kind of leave the theater or finish watching the film? Like, what do you think he wants us to take away?
That's a really good question. I'm not really sure. I'm out of communication with him, and it just kind of ended, and we really haven't spoken since it ended. But he hates automobiles, and he just thinks that the automobile has basically cut off so many ways of traveling in alternative ways, whether by foot, bicycle, or horse. And so I think the message he wants people to be left with is, if you don't use it, you lose it. we had trails. We had trails everywhere. That's the way people traveled. And everybody in every community we went to, when they would see him, they said, "Oh yeah, people used to, when I was a kid, people used to ride their horses through town, and stuff. And we don't have that anymore. And they put another lane in the road, for cars." And so I think the real thing comes out is just his desire to have a multi-use trail system, and that people really have to do it community by community, because each community has to make their own plan and connect with the adjacent community, because you have so many communities that will go ahead and put in a trail and then it just stops at the border.
Yeah.
And so it takes a cooperation of all the communities to make that happen. Right there in San Francisco, the Bay Area Ridge Trail, the plan has been around for years. It's a huge trail that goes all the way around the Bay Area, but a lot of it goes through private property, and it takes a long time to negotiate getting that private property. And of course, as he discovered, when he gets to the Golden Gate Bridge, that's kind of like, how do you get across the Golden Gate Bridge? And
Right.
and so they accommodated him, as you see in the film.
Well, and I guess that raises another question. I mean, I think that's a good thing to kind of reflect upon about the use it or lose it sort of thing, because I think there are lots of things in our world that we take for granted sometimes, or there are periods, our lives evolve in some ways. Was there, I can imagine there were a lot of adventures during those 200 days of filming. Was there, any kind of instances that kind of surprised you, or that were just kind of interesting stories from the road that didn't make it into the film?
Oh, boy, that's thinking back. It was so long ago that we actually did the filming, because as so many filmmakers know, you get the filming done, that's the easy part. Then you have to go through the post-production part, and that's where you have to raise the money.
Well,
I mean, there were every time it was kind of interesting. This kind of leads also to this, maybe isn't answering the question, but this also leads to kind of why the whole process ended. Is that me with my camera, obviously, when people, even though it was just me, there was no boom operator, no production assistant or anything, people would approach us and they'd be asking me, who is this guy and what is he doing? And he's standing a few feet away. And I'm going, why don't you ask him? Why are you asking me? Obviously, there's a little bit of, I don't know, he didn't seem like he should be off-putting, but maybe people were feeling that way. And I think that bothered him a lot. And so that's really why we kind of ended it, so he could go back to his life without the guy with the camera around and just have people actually be able to talk to him. And he was good about talking to people. I mean, as long as he was not in a hurry to get to a destination for them to spend the night, which was always on his mind. We've got to find a place where we can spend the night. And so
imagine that would be very stressful, of like, that you don't know that you always have a place to be, and so you need to get there.
Yeah, the one time, okay, this is kind of the longest trip I ever went with him was we met in kind of the Marina del Rey area of Los Angeles, and he was going to go up across along Santa Monica and through Westwood and try to find a place to stay after about 10 miles. And I followed him that entire time. I think I walked 27 miles that day, and I got a baby stroller, like a fancy double baby stroller to carry my gear, would just try to keep up with him. And so we walk all the way through Beverly Hills, and he goes, there's no empty lots in Beverly Hills. All I need is an empty lot. Everything's developed. And then we get through West Hollywood, all through West Hollywood. Finally, I bailed on him in West Hollywood because it was about 9 o'clock at night, had somebody pick me up and take me back to my car back in Marina del Rey. And I found out that he had to go all the way through and around to Griffith Park, got there maybe at midnight, and got a place there where he was able to sleep for the night. So that was always an issue when he was in a metropolis, like LA.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Um, well, before we wrap this up, I mean, the thing I always try to remind our audience is that we're so lucky that filmmakers like John, share their films earlier in their life with us, and so now you guys are like the street team for Call Me Mule. And so what you can do is get out there and kind of spread it on social media or over at the next kind of backyard barbecue to talk about this really cool documentary. So, John, what's the best way to kind of continue to follow the film story and kind of help spread the word?
Well, the website is 3mulesmovie.com, numeral 3mulesmovie.com. And you can sign up there and get emails from me about it and look for screenings. And you'll also, if you go to mcdonaldproductions.com, you can see the documentary I did at USC called Cotton Eye Joe. It's free. It's only 12 minutes long, and it'll show you a similar kind of thing of a guy trying to live a different kind of life off the grid back when I did my very first film. So
That's a really cool film. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys get a chance. Go to McDonald Productions and watch Cotton Eye Joe. Well, thanks again, John. Have a great day, and thanks again for telling the story.
You're very welcome. Thank you.